Good evening, Marek.
Good
Great to
evening. How are you? How are you, man?
good, good. That's great you managed to join us here today.
Yeah, it's a
That's
great
really
pleasure,
awesome.
and it's a great pleasure. Thank you very much for giving me this forum to talk. One thing that we did not organize beforehand. How are you on swearing? Because I don't know how much I need to pay attention to that, and sometimes it happens that I throw a bomb.
If we get there so emotional, much appreciated. If that
Fair
helps us
enough.
to explain the topic, I'm there.
Yeah, I mean, this is an emotional topic. As you will see, I have some strong and passionate thoughts on that, on personal responsibility and ownership. So yeah, the F word or Esh word, it might happen, but hey, it's for the good, right?
That's all emotions. That's what we're looking for here. Marek, before we go to the topic, and I give you also a stage to introduce yourself,
Yeah,
very shortly, maybe to grab the context, why you here, why we meeting, and why we took on the agenda the ownership topic as such.
yeah,
So to explain this, I need to get back to 2 weeks. So just after the last live I conducted with Kasha, I was looking for the feedback and also for kind of understanding if the last live we conducted was of value. So what I did, I called a couple of people. Marek, you were one of them. And then from one word to another, we started to talk about leadership, and we found out, yeah, how about we have this kind of life and we talk about leadership. And I don't know if you recall at that time, I even shoot that topic, but
yeah,
you directly killed me saying, man, if you want to talk about leadership, we need to start with
yeah,
the ownership, because
yeah,
ownership is all what lays on background of the leadership. And I at that time I had this kind of aha. I was like, yeah, you're right. We should talk about ownership. You know,
yeah, yeah. Leadership. It's man. We had this discussion as well. Maybe we can jump into that later. Leadership is on the one hand such a big topic, and it's very hard to define, and very rarely someone knows how to deal with it. Very rarely someone knows how to be a great leader. I am by no means a great leader. I have some thoughts. I think these are thoughts worth sharing. Definitely so have you. So it's very difficult to talk about leadership because it's so complex and so huge, and there are so variables. Why don't we just pick it apart and start with something of value, and something that will bring value to everyone that might be listening? Because hey, how to be a great leader? No clue. I have no clue. Right?
yeah, very abstract concept, I would say, and
Yeah.
that links me very nicely to how we came with the leadership talk. So
Yeah.
I know Marek for quite some time now. I have to admit, we met in a couple of conferences. There was IT conferences, leadership conferences. I believe you were even a speaker in one of those, and you had
Yeah.
a out of that time actually we didn't meet for some longer period, and lately just we
Yeah.
had a very long conversation around leadership, and that was
Yeah.
just before even the first live we did with Kasha. And then you made me think a lot. The discussion was very broad,
Oh yeah.
when I
But
thought around, okay, if we want to do leadership new ways of working series, at certain point you need to be there also to share your experience. But
oh
maybe
yeah.
you can give us some words from your side, how you see this topic.
Do you know a leader who has been formally trained to be a great leader? Most of us need to do it by trial and error, and it's mostly error, which is tragic, really, because in my mind, what a good leader should do is take care of the people, and it's what maybe a little bit like parenting. Yeah, you need to do it by trial and
Yeah.
error, but at the same time, you need to be very careful not to waste talent.
Okay, exactly. I would fully agree
Yeah.
here. But so what was your story?
At a fairly early stage of my career in IT, I made a decision that I'm not going to be an expert, a subject matter expert. I started off as an ERP consultant, but you know what? It's maybe a part of my personality that I like to jump from subject to subject, and being an expert in only one seemed very tedious and boring. And I started talking to one of my first mentors, and he said, you have no idea what you're dealing with here. I mean, leadership is so difficult. Everyone wants to become a leader, manager, CEO, whatever. No one has a damn idea on how stressful it is and how much time you need to put into this and how punishing it is. And yeah, he sold it to me, really. I mean, it's been a challenge, and since then, I mean, like I said, I had some courses in leadership, but no one really taught me how to do it. I had some great mentors in my organization, and I learned. I became a team leader. Then I became a manager of a team. Then I became a manager of a bigger unit, and finally I became a regional manager for IT in this organization. I was just riding shotgun in this great adventure, and I'm trying to do my best and serve the people around me. That's all there was to it.
And here, nicely, Marek, we go into this ownership topic. So
yeah,
let me last time mention the live we had with Kasha 2 weeks ago, because this concept is of having these lives bi-weekly, so every second week on Wednesdays at 8. So what we were discussing there was exactly the demand and control which we had in the past, or we still might have. It doesn't work in this complex world. So the leader is to create an environment, right? So that the people can act and drive initiatives, right? And this is easy to say, but the question is how to really bring it to life pragmatically.
Yeah, you are right about it. Yeah. And I distinctively remember our last conversation on the topic, and we kind of moved this conversation into, all right, how do we nurture this environment of leadership? And it struck me in the last 2 days when I was preparing for our conversation today. I don't think that's a good question to ask. The sense of ownership needs to come from the leader. It's not something that leader can push to the team, to his organization. Creating and fostering the environment of ownership, that's completely secondary. In my mind, the most important part of all this is you need to take ownership. I mean, and I'm talking about full ownership of everything that's going wrong around you in your work environment, with your team, with your superior, in your personal life. This is where the ownership starts.
So you're referring basically to leading by example, right? Here.
In the end, yes, but that's not the point. I mean, I'm not striking a pose to be owning everything around me. No, I mean, a byproduct of owning everything would be that maybe example comes to someone else. I'm not sure if the distinction that I'm making is very clear, but at least in my mind, it's very clear. When everything is fine, smooth sailing, and then you give credit away, right? But sooner or later, something will happen. Shit will hit the fan, right? And then you need to say, it was my mistake. It wasn't the team, because even if you could dissect a problem that happened to you, and you see, all right, this person, he misclicked, or the piece of code that he wrote, that's suboptimal, and this caused a catastrophic failure somewhere down the line. It's not about that person. It's not about pointing fingers. And unfortunately, corporate environments promote shedding responsibility and diluting responsibility to, all right, it's this team. This team says, no, it's that team. And then no one is responsible for anything, and you do not get anything done. What I'm saying here is, no, it's my responsibility. I take the blame, and I own finding a solution. And third, very important part is, I own the implementation of the solution to the problem that has been created. Whether it's my fault or no, doesn't really matter. If it's anywhere within my reach, maybe not my team, but listen, you might say that, oh, I'm only responsible for this team or this product or this service or whatever, but really you have direct and indirect control or influence rather on so many different things in your organization. You cannot even say, oh, my stupid boss did something and okay, my hands are tied. It doesn't really work like this. You somehow need to figure out means to achieve your goal, right?
You're already going into this swearing mode. I like it because it means we're talking here about the real stuff. But then,
yeah,
how would you define the ownership just in one sentence, like very simply? If you were to explain it to your employee or to your boss even, how would you name it? So from this abstract concept, so that we can grasp it somehow.
Well, 3 points there. Really, you take responsibility. You identify the solution, and you implement the solution. That's how I do it. It doesn't matter who really made the mistake or where the problem lies. It's you take the responsibility. That's that. And maybe you will build trust with your team. But with this example, with your team, it will definitely be helpful. Meaning that if your team feels secure in the environment when blame is not relevant, but the solution is relevant, maybe you will gain their trust. I mean, and don't get me wrong, because such an approach is maybe risky for your career. Have you thought about that?
Depends actually how much room or how much failure culture you can allow. I mean, you also need to think from the perspective of, okay, if I want to make the failure culture to enable ownership, to not to frighten people, right? I need to be aware and conscious and know how far I can go. There are certain decisions that might have a big influence. Certainly, you can make losses in the company. The question is for what kind of losses you can allow, right? And then it needs to be a conscious decision of the leader, even seeing that the failure is coming, but allowing it. And I would say it's a different story then, because here we're talking really about a failure culture, which is part of the ownership topic, right?
Yeah, I thought about this. I thought about the failure culture because we discussed this last time, and I'm not sure about this. Because I always gave this in my discussions with the team, especially the youngest of my teammates, the ones that just started their careers. Right. I gave this. I gave them this speech that, all right, you can really make mistakes here. I will take care of you, and I will make sure that you are safe here, because you can only learn through the mistakes. And only today I started thinking whether this is the best way to phrase it, really, because it is my job as a leader to be as prepared as possible. Meaning that I maybe learning through mistakes is not the best concept. Maybe I should give them all the training that they should have, all the procedures, all the policies. Maybe I should give them mentoring of my own and make sure that other teammates more senior to this person would guide him so that he gets to learn. Because like I fully agree with what you said there, that some mistakes have the consequences, and maybe they should be avoided, because some of our mistakes do have financial consequences, and we could lose, as leaders, we could lose trust by being too lax about how we lead our teams. Does it make sense to you?
Yeah, I would say it doesn't go for me in a contrary. I mean,
All
of
right.
course, first you need to provide training and prepare the person on one side. On the other side, you need to give this freedom and space. And this is what we call create an environment, but
Mm,
this safe environment where you know what the limits are. So you basically know how much you can afford and you anticipate the mistakes that might happen. You can't do for all, but for some of them, you anticipate. So you know that it's going wrong direction, but you're
yeah.
observing. If being asked, you give feedback, but you let it go, and then based on this, you draw with the team, with the team member of the team, the lessons learned, not to make it again. If it
Yeah.
happens again, then for me it's incompetence.
Oh,
So
yes.
you
You're
didn't
absolutely
learn
right.
out of it. So we need to distinguish those two situations. But then, if we talk about this ownership, so why is that so important?
Well, I mean, there's easy answer to this, the way I see it, and there's
Let's take the easy one.
the easy
I tell
one.
it
No,
directly.
but the easy one isn't the best. The easy one is we no longer can afford to have 10 people doing separate tasks. Your team, you do not have abundance of talent in your team, right? You need to optimize all the time. Ownership is a part of optimization of the team. I mean, hey, it's to put it simply, it is about bringing as much bang for your buck as you can, nurturing the talent to be the best that they can, so that they bring the biggest benefit, biggest value to the company. That's let's say semi-financial approach to this. All right, but
So,
this
so
is yeah,
yeah, so very pragmatic, I have to say.
yeah.
I actually like that. I never look at it from this perspective. But then if we take it around, it means basically what you're saying for me is like we want to eliminate waste. So we want to give as much
Yeah.
power to the people because they know how to do and they can make decision. They don't need a leader
Oh
to
yeah.
come with solutions. So it's very pragmatic. But then you said you have the longer version.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's something much closer to my heart, really. There's this cliche about being a servant leader. I don't really know what's the definition of a servant leader, but I think what I have in mind is somewhere in the vicinity of that. My responsibility as a leader is to allow my team members to become the best version of themselves as they can. Allowing them to do this really transcends the 8 hours that they spend at the job. I mean, in ideal world, I would inspire them to be as good as they can be in their private life, in their love life and relationships, and at work, and any circumstance they find themselves in. Listen, I hate when people say, "Oh, it's just a job. It's 8 hours, and then I go home and I start living my life." Do you get to hear that from time to time?
And this is certainly happening here and there. So what would be the recipe then to get out of this trap of this is just corpo thing and this is just a job and
Right.
actually for me I just waste time basically. That's what it means
All
for
right.
me. Like,
Yeah.
I need to
Yeah.
do
Yeah.
it,
Yeah.
but waste of time.
You might be wasting your time, but do you have a better alternative? See, the thing about change is, yeah, you can change, you can demolish what you have, but only if you have something better in mind that you can do. So unless you have this big project that you have, or this big startup that you want to try, until then, stick to what you already have, because you are good at this, because I've hired you, and you can be so much better. It's not about putting extra effort. It's not about sitting 12 hours a day at your desk. It's not that. You can be smart about your job in 8 hours a day. But if you really think carefully about what you're doing, if you apply some critical thinking to what you're doing, if you take ownership, for God's sake, of your job, like I do, then I mean, you're destined to win there, and there are only two. Listen, if I had this conversation with a team member who is not performing to his potential, because these are the ones that I would really like to focus on. I mean, I'll tell him point blank, there are two ways to go from this point. You either succeed or you fail. And every decision that you make from now on either brings you forward to a success, whatever you defined your success as, or it brings you closer to failure. And if you do not live up to your potential, you might live your life in a mediocre way. I don't want this for you. I want you to be as satisfied. I want you to be as good, as amazing as I see you have potential to be. So yeah, let's do this and do your best and try to improve whatever you're doing, right?
I would add on top of this. So for me, it is, the first question that I would ask is, have you looked around of what is possible in the organization? Have you talked to people to understand where there are different options in the organization to develop yourself? Whenever I ask this question, I had a couple of those discussions. Suddenly it appeared there are, but it's our responsibility again to have a look around, right, and find own thing that we can, either develop with or maybe change for different position or whatever is necessary. And at the end, you either love it or you change it. I mean, we know reasons. So it's only, I mean, as you said, if you don't like it, change it, because we are both suffering here. Your performance.
You're talking about extreme case, and I'm not there, and I would really leave it as a last resort, because before we are at the point when there's nothing to improve, I mean, there are steps to be taken to improve.
Marek, but then this person needs to have the same opinion.
Oh, well, I mean,
otherwise,
who the hell did you hire in the first place? I mean, because, well, that's quite simple. You either hired someone who you shouldn't have hired in the first place because it wasn't placed for him, and so this is on you because you're a leader and you own it. Or something happened along the way that they are demotivated, right? It's either the team, it's the environment, it's the workplace, it's the coffee. Hey, but you can talk to this person. And
again, Marek, we're coming to the ownership topic. So we made a list. But again, it's a leader owning and leading by example. But then, right, so we talk about why it's important. So it is important. Without this, you can't really trigger the servant leadership thing, and you can't really create any environment if there's no ownership. Okay, this is agreed. How then do you think we can really bring it to life in the organization? Like, because it is not like you can mandate this. You cannot say it is. No. It is not like you come to someone. If I can make comparison, and now I come to you, Marek, and tell you from now on you trust me. Why? Because I say so, and I'm your boss. By definition, this is wrong. It doesn't work this way. So how do we really bring it to the organization that it works?
Right. I mean, let's start with my first point. You need to own it. And by doing this, and you need to own all the failures in the organization, everything from minor to major stuff, things that someone else fucked up, but you had any sort of impact on this. You own it as well. What could I have done better not to allow this situation to happen? That's first and foremost. And I mean, if you do that, and if you're really honest with yourself about doing this, well, you're a winner in the long run anyway. Yeah, maybe you get fired if you have a stupid leader, but that's a first and foremost. There are some additional points of discussion. Teamwork, as in you do not shit on the other teams. Oh, it's their fault, right? It's the first line support, or it's the sysops guys who screwed up again. You never do this. And you as a leader need to ensure that your team does not have those feelings. And you say it over and over and over again. No, it's not their fault. It's our fault as an organization, right?
So I would say what you're referring now to are kind of principles that
Yeah,
you build with your team, or the values. So you with your team build some kind
yeah,
of, again, framework in which you want to jointly work. And I agree to what you're saying, but when I look from the perspective of, we're saying, yeah, let's create an environment, let's have servant leadership, let's
yeah.
enable ownership. Like, and when I think about, okay, so yeah, let's do. So what
No,
I see,
no, but you
when
don't,
it's
man.
done,
But you don't do this. You cannot listen. In which situations do you have real impact, or what can you really impact or enforce? Whom can you really?
I believe I can.
All right, but
So
whom? Your team?
I can impact the behavior of the team. I cannot impact the people,
Yeah,
but I can like what you just said around, setting the stage, being an
yeah,
example, being an owner yourself, setting up principles and values. You set up the stage, right?
yeah. My point is, I don't think there's that much more that you can do. And because if you really think about ownership in a way, it's a personal responsibility. That's huge if you really take it into heart. That's huge, and it may be an eye opener for people around you. Not that many people. There's not much needed for this ownership culture to grow, because suddenly someone might say in your team, "Hey, I really want to be this person. In 10 years' time, I really want to be like that." Or, "Hey, this is a good team to work in. I really want to be in that team um, because we fix stuff, because we solve problems, and like I said, take responsibility, identify solutions, implement the solutions. Nothing else really matters there."
For me, it is not that easy that you become a leader who is leading by example, and then it appears. I don't believe in this.
Yeah.
And I believe you have influence on behavior of the people, not only through setting up the stage and leading by example, but you can
Mm.
physically, you can disagree with me now, based on my experience, you can do it on two levels.
Okay.
On one side, we're talking here on a personal level. So basically, making a professional delegation, but not of the task, but of the area of responsibility,
Responsibility. Yeah.
right? And if you do it properly, and there are methods to do it professionally, not just say, and the worst is when you do it by email, yeah, like you send email, you do this. This is nothing to do with the delegation. But if you do
Mm.
professional delegation, then for me this is changing the behavior. And if it's done in person, and you explain why this person you want to delegate to, you show appreciation, and you set up the context, then you make this person an owner, because you explain the context and this person believes that it makes sense, I want to do it.
Yeah.
So for me, this is
Um,
the spiritual aspect.
yeah. Would you care to elaborate on this professional delegation?
Yeah, I would
Yeah.
say, so many times, what I've seen in my
Mm.
life, the delegation is, you go to someone because you're the boss, and you tell the person what needs to be done.
Yeah.
And for me, we go to the swearing now. This is totally fucked up. This means there is no leader. There is maybe a manager that
Yeah.
trying to
Yeah.
manage. For me, what should happen is, you should start with describing what the situation is about. Why are you coming to this person first? So you don't talk about the area yet, yeah. Then you talk about why you're choosing this person. So
Mhm.
first you explain why you're choosing this person before you say what needs to be done. Because if you say what needs to be done, most probably what will happen, it will be said, the person is switched off and thinking, why me? I have enough work. But if you set up the context, then you say, why you? I choose you. And there might be different arguments.
All
You
right.
might be doing this, and and then you set up the area, right? Okay. Then you ask what you think about this.
Yeah.
So so you understand if this person is fine with this or not, and then based on this you react, right? Uh, and then ask this person, how are you gonna do this? Because you not delegate task, but you delegate responsibility. And
Yeah.
then you learn what will be done and how this will be done. And
Yeah.
then you understand. Then you can make a paraphrase, of course, but at the end you also say, okay, how much time you need for this? You don't set up the time. And if the time is fine within your schedule and it works, great.
Right.
We appreciate this. If not, you negotiate. And for me, this is delegation. This is a conversation. Yeah, we are two humans on the same level. And we're talking about. So for me, this is shaping the ownership on a personal level.
Yeah. You're absolutely right.
Right?
I wanted to talk about this as well in the context of planning.
Okay.
And again, the role of the leader is not to plan. I would rather say it's to listen, and because all the knowledge comes from subject matter experts, right? You're not all that knowledgeable, and it's really a shame when the leader with some previous background tries to enforce his knowledge, which might be outdated, on guys who are in the job and they know best what and how and how much time it will take. So because this is how you get all the innovative ideas. This is why this is how you get buy-in from the team. Really, when you treat everyone as subject matter experts, and then all right, you might have some ideas that are better, some are worse. Maybe it's your role as a leader to facilitate,
right?
And maybe find weak points in the plan based on your experience. But then again, you do not shut it down. You just throw in extra ideas.
But you see, Marek, for me, this is just one side of the coin. And then every leader, young leader, can learn this, and by experience get there with delegation, right? Also, I don't know if you're familiar with this concept of delegation matrix. There was Jürgen Appello of Management 3.0 explaining that actually automated, and you can use it as a motivation tool. Everyone understands in your team on which level is, and then by moving more freedom in solving tasks, you actually show appreciation and trust in this person, and this can also work as a motivator. But I didn't want to talk about this. This is a secondary topic. What I really want to direct us into is, because we also had this exchange in the past, I really believe that ownership is created by creating the culture. What I mean here is, again, creating this kind of environment is a process. It's not a one-time event. It's not a one-time workshop. It's a process.
Yeah.
And I was thinking how I did this till now with various teams.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you would agree with me, but I really want to make it pragmatic. As you made the definition pragmatic, which I loved, I want to really give the hints how to approach this ownership for someone who is like, stuck. Like, hey, I want to be there. I understand what you're saying, but man. So what I would start with actually is bringing the team together, making a workshop, and first starting with the values of the team, and starting with why are we here and why we want to do something. Because without answering why, this is just I put task on you and you do because I'm the boss. But if you know why and we agree jointly, we want to do it jointly, because creating a team is not putting people together in one place. Is rather the people need to agree that they want to work together. And creating this kind of thing that I make people to think, why are we in this room talking about this shit? And why should I care about that? This is important for the organization. No, the leader should be talking from the benefits perspective for the employee, not for the organization. But then if you come to the point when you make people think like, why are we actually doing it? Maybe even the KPIs are wrong, not necessary. No one reads them.
Sure.
But then you start with people be on the same page with you. Like, guys, now we can talk. Once we talk about values, principles, now we can talk. Okay, what kind of objectives we need to set to ourselves that really we can start doing and act. Very often is that even if this workshop happens, there is no leader or director or this big boss, because he says, I have some other stuff to do. You do the workshop and then you come tell me how it was because I'm so smart. And this is directly destroying the situation. So this shouldn't happen.
Okay,
And
let me challenge you on this. But does it really? From my experience, some initiatives, especially those that do not require big budgets, it would be very nice if a big boss agreed or applauded what we're doing there. But is it really all that necessary? Maybe it's your job to build the culture on your level and downstream of this, and maybe not bother them with this. That's another thing really about ownership and being in a leadership position. You need to manage your leader as well, right? Maybe it's for you to take ownership of this, and you don't need to seek approval from anyone else. No, this is your thing, and you think this is right for the organization. This is directly connected to high-level vision that has been presented to you by the board or management, or however.
Marek, we're talking the same. What
Yeah.
I'm saying is where to start. So when you start, you want to bring it to life.
Yeah.
And as we said, lead by example. It starts with the leader. We have various leaders, various levels. But if there is no this leadership culture on a team lead level, coordinator level, you need to start as a director or a CIO or whatever is your level, because you know you take ownership and you redistribute it lower and higher if possible. Right? So I'm coming from this angle. But you're right. If the team is enabled, empowered enough to do it on their own, go and engage me when you need me. So then we go into management by exception. And this is, what we really want to have, so that you bother when you need to be bothered, because you trust and there is ownership, so you don't need to be bothered with everything. So for me, it's a circle. We come to the same point, but
we do.
In different place, I would say.
Yeah, we do. And see, because what we're talking about, and our viewers most likely know all of this, especially better than myself. And but all the time that we're discussing this amazing topic, all right. So what's the takeaway? Because everything that I said, everything that you said, you can read in a book or gain experience or be mentored into it. What I think is a smallest difference here, or this little thing that's different, is that it starts with you really and no one else, and you do not seek to build a culture because it comes downstream. You start with yourself, and that's the biggest impact really. It's hard and it's brutal. Really, but this is what I mean. If we were to talk about one little difference or one little message, especially that I would like to convey, is that you need to really start with yourself. Are you super honest with with yourself about what you're doing and how you present yourself in your environment.
Nicely summed up. Yeah, starting with yourself, it's certainly the point. But as I mentioned previously, having kind of hints and tools which you can read in a book, maybe, I don't know. I can be only grateful that I was allowed to experiment, and even sometimes on a big scale, that I was then later thinking like the crazy stuff that I was allowed to do such things. But only by this I learned what we just now talking, that you have to start with yourself, but then actually bring some pragmatic approach to how to make it long run in the organization using various, I would call it, management tools. So as delegation, making properly, and teaching other leaders how to delegate and how important that is. And then also creating this kind of culture. I know it's a buzzword, but this kind of culture in the organization where you are with the team, they have chance to see how you work and act. You make workshops with them, you talk about the values, principles, you set up them jointly. Then maybe you use objective key results, right? Where you bring these goals jointly and you with the team on the same page. Then it's matter of maintaining this. So it's a process. And then the culture of ownership appears. So for me, just leading by example, I would say from my experience, it would not be enough.
No, no, but
Is
I never
it
said that. I never said
right?
that really. If you do all the other stuff
Right.
and you are not up to your highest standard, you're just a fucking hypocrite, right? And it's nowhere to be a person that someone could aspire to be 10 years down the line.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? You cannot have one without the other, because yeah, I'm forcing upon you this idea of taking everything on your chest and then processing it. But you are absolutely right that the other part is clear communication, knowing the why is and not only how and what. The why is super important. Decentralizing decision making, or how you said it, delegating. That's the same thing. This is super important. You need to put responsibility as low as you can on people who are able to make good calls. You are absolutely right about that. You need to step back from time to time and assess the situation from a broader perspective. I agree with that as well. So we are talking about the same thing, only putting our accents on you're putting accent on one thing, and I'm putting
Yeah.
accent on the other thing, and they cannot go without one another. You are absolutely right about that.
Marek, great talk.
Yeah,
Great, really much appreciated. This will be, of course, published on YouTube later. So I would say, Marek, thanks for today. I believe, of course, we will share our LinkedIn account. So if anyone have questions around this, I'm keen to answer or have a discussion. I believe, Marek, same with you.
yeah, of course, of course.
So the contacts will be there if anything. And thanks for today. Thanks, Marek, for joining. That was really good discussion. Really much appreciated.
It was
And
absolutely amazing. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
maybe we make it again. How about
And I
this?
mean, hey, I'm open. If you think I have anything good to say, that hey, I'm there.
Thank you for today. See you in 2 weeks on Wednesday, 8 p.m. Thank you.
Thank you.